Lance Liebridge says farming corn in Iowa is now a financial train wreck. Next year, every acre will lose $180, even with record yields in the fields. Production costs have soared to $916 per acre, yet cash corn prices are stuck near $4 per bushel. If $5 is break even, how can farmers survive with prices cut in half since 2022? The impossible math hides a deeper crisis, and the full story starts here. Corn prices in Iowa today hover between $3.71 and $4.23 per bushel at local elevators. On the futures market, contracts for next year's crop trade near $4.36. But for farmers, those numbers do not come close to covering what it actually costs to put a crop in the ground. The break-even point, where revenue matches the full cost of growing an acre of corn, now stands at $5 per bushel. Iowa State University's latest production budgets peg total costs for 2026 at $916 per acre. These costs include seed, fertilizer, chemicals, fuel, machinery, hired labor, land rent, and interest on operating loans. The math is simple, but relentless. Take a typical Iowa corn yield of 180 bushels per acre. At a cash price of $4 per bushel, that brings in $720 from the market. Subtract the $916 it takes to grow that crop, and the result is a loss of $196 per acre. Even at the high end of recent cash prices, $4.23, a 180 bushel yield, only generates $761 in revenue, still leaving a farmer $155 short for every acre planted. If prices slip to $3.90 per bushel, the loss balloons to $216 per acre. These losses are not projections for a bad year. They are what farmers face, even with average yields and no major weather disasters. The break-even price keeps rising as input costs climb, but the market offers no relief. Since the 2022 spike, when corn briefly topped $8 per bushel after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, prices have crashed by nearly half. Meanwhile, the cost of fertilizer, machinery, seed, and interest has barely budged from record highs. For Iowa farmers, every acre planted in 2026 is a bet that loses money before the seed even hits the soil. The arithmetic is clear. The more acres you plant, the more you lose. USDA projections for the 2025 crop year show American farmers are planning to plant nearly 92 million acres of corn. In Iowa, the push to plant every available acre is not about optimism. It is about survival. With prices stuck below break-even, many operators hope a big crop might offset losses through sheer volume. But the math does not cooperate. The trend yield for 2025 is set at 182 bushels per acre, a number that reflects steady gains in seed technology and management, not a bumper year. Multiply that yield by the huge acreage, and the country is staring at a harvest topping 15 billion bushels. Add in more than 2 billion bushels of leftover corn from last year, and small imports, and the total corn supply for the 2025 marketing year will exceed 17 billion bushels. Ending stocks, the corn left unsold at the end of the year, are projected at about 2.2 billion bushels, levels not seen since the last major glut. When supplies get this large, prices have nowhere to go. Historical data shows that when ending stocks rise above 2 billion bushels, season average prices for corn almost always sink into the $3 to low $4 per bushel range. The result is a market where supply overwhelms demand. There is no shortage, no weather disaster to drive prices higher. Instead, the system is saturated. Ethanol production, livestock feed, and exports all remain flat, unable to absorb the flood. The 50% price collapse since 2022 is not a fluke. It is the direct result of these massive surpluses. Even as farmers plant more, the oversupply keeps the market pinned down. For Iowa growers, this means the prospect of a price rebound is remote. The more bushels they harvest, the deeper the financial hole becomes. The stage is set for a wave of consequences that go far beyond individual farm losses. In the first quarter of 2025, bankruptcy courts across the country recorded 259. Chapter 12 Farm Bankruptcy Filings, a 70% jump over the same period the year before. Iowa alone accounted for 18 of those cases, more than any other state. That number stands out, especially when you consider Iowa has fewer people than California and about 25,000 more farms. For many, the warning signs began months earlier. Lenders and farm credit officers started flagging more and more loans as troubled. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, 4.3% of all farm loans in the district now show major or severe repayment problems, the highest share since late 2020. The word here is bankruptcy. Quinn Kendrick, general counsel at the Iowa-based People S Company, calls the situation unprecedented in his career. He points to the growing stack of court dockets and the quiet conversations happening in bankers' offices across the state. Farmers who once had no trouble renewing their annual operating loans are now told they need to put up more collateral, pay down old balances, or in some cases, look elsewhere for credit. For some, the answer is simply no. Credit is tightening, and the word is credit. The pain is especially acute for younger farmers and for those who rent most of their land. Ty Reitman, an economist at the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City, explains these operators have not built up the equity or reserves that older, established farms can lean on. Without that cushion, a single year of losses can be fatal. The Chicago Fed's loan distress metric shows banks are denying operating credit to farmers at a rate not seen in decades. Some growers are now unable to secure the financing they need to put a crop in the ground for 2026. The focus is on young farmers. These numbers are more than statistics. They represent families losing farms that have been in their name for generations. As bankruptcy filings mount, the financial cliff is no longer theoretical. For Iowa-S corn farmers, insolvency is no longer a distant threat. It is already here, reshaping the landscape before the next seed is even planted. The reality is insolvency. Vern Hosek's kitchen table is covered in receipts and loan statements. Fertilizer now eats up nearly half his crop budget, up more than 60% since 2020. Machinery is 25 to 30% pricier, and seed costs have jumped another 20%. Even a basic repair can derail a month's margin. For every $100,000 borrowed, annual interest has nearly doubled. What cost $4,400 3 years ago now runs $8,470. Hosek calls it a slow bleed, draining working capital from every corner of Iowa's farm economy. April Hems, who surveys farmers for the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, hears the same anxiety. Fertilizer is their top worry, followed by the struggle to secure loans. Reliable financing, once a given, is slipping away. State data shows the 2025 crop will be Iowa's second most expensive ever to plant. Chad Hart, an agricultural economist, tracks the other side of the ledger. China, once the world's largest buyer of U.S. soybeans, has shifted almost entirely to Brazil and Argentina. By this point in a typical year, China would have imported 300 to 400 million bushels from the U.S. This season, official figures show almost none. The loss cuts deep. Iowa's soybean, corn, pork, and ethanol sectors together stand to lose nearly $3.4 billion in revenue and related activity. Consolidation in the supply chain has only tightened the squeeze. Koch Industries' purchase of the Southeast Iowa fertilizer plant for $3.6 billion, built with $240 million in public incentives, was meant to increase competition. Instead, farmers like Mike Beerbaum say it is harder than ever to shop for better prices. Costs keep rising, even as markets shrink. The damage spreads far beyond the farm. Iowa's net income is projected to drop 24% by 2026, erasing nearly $3 billion in earnings. 4,000 agriculture-adjacent jobs have already disappeared. Farmland, valued at $4,350 an acre, could tumble if losses persist. U.S. farm debt is set to reach $561.8 billion in 2025, with smaller operators carrying much of the weight. Across Iowa, 1 in 5 jobs depends on agriculture. When corn farmers lose $180 per acre, the impact ripples far beyond the fields, threatening rural towns, banks, and families statewide. The reality unfolding here isn't just about crops. It's about the future of America's heartland. What happens next affects us all.